Elementary Algebra, Final Assessment 2, Review, Questions 1 through 6, Outcome 2, Solving. In this section of the review, you were asked to solve. Solving linear equations can be done by following 3 basic steps. The first step is to simplify both sides of the equation as needed. This can be done by using the distributive property to distribute to clear parentheses and combine like terms. In step 2, you're to use the addition principle so that all variable terms are on one side of the equation and all constants are on the other side. Suggestion: clear the variable term with the lesser coefficient to avoid negative coefficients. Then combine like terms. The final step, step 3, is to use the multiplication principle to clear any remaining coefficient. Let's begin by simplifying both sides of the equation. In looking at the left side of the equation, we see that we have a negative 8b and 6b that are alike. We'll combine these two to create a 2b. We will then carry down the constant 2 and move on to the right side of the equation. On the right side, it is already simplified, so we'll simply carry it down as is. Next, we want to use the addition principle of equality to clear a term in an equation. We do this by adding the additive inverse of the term to both sides of the equation. That is, we add or subtract appropriately so that the term you want to clear becomes 0. In this case, we'll begin by moving or clearing the negative 3b. The additive inverse to the negative 3b would be a positive 3b. We add this to both sides of the equation to keep it balanced. When summing a positive 3b to a negative 2b, we are left with a positive b. We can then carry down the plus 2, the equal sign. The negative 3b plus 3b goes down to 0 and carry down the plus 7. Next, we want to move the constant 2 away from the b, still using the addition principle of equality. We do this by summing to it its additive inverse, which is a negative 2. We place this negative 2 again on both sides of the equation to keep it balanced. We end up with b plus 0 equals 0 plus 5. This means that b is equal to 5. If we wish to check our answer, we can simply plug the 5 back into the original equation anywhere we see b and solve down to verify that the equation is true. Next, we are to solve for y in problem number 2. We will start by clearing the parentheses using the distributive property. This means that the negative 2 will be distributing through to both terms inside the parentheses. We'll carry down the 7y as that we're not using it at this time, unchanged. We distribute the negative 2 to the y to create a minus 2y. We then distribute the negative 2 to the negative 7 to create a positive 14. Let's do the same to the right side of the equation. We'll carry down the 9y as that we are not using it at this time. Then we see a minus followed by the parenthesis. What we don't see is that there is a negative 1 or a 1 sitting in front of the parenthesis. It will be a negative 1 that we will distribute throughout the parenthesis in this problem. So we will distribute a negative 1 to a positive 5 to create a negative 5y. We will distribute a negative 1 to the positive 11 to create a negative or minus 11. Let's continue with simplifying. Next, let's combine like terms. On the left side, we see we have a 7y and a 2y. Let's combine these. 7 minus 2 to get 5y. Then carry down the plus 14 and the equal sign. On the right side, we see we have a 9y minus 5y. 9 minus 5 leaves us with 4y minus 11. Next, we want to move one of our terms. We will use the addition principle of equality to start clearing terms. Let's start with the 4y. We'll subtract the 4y from both sides of the problem, keeping the problem balanced. This will leave us with a positive y on the left. Carry down your plus 14. 4y minus 4y equals 0. Carry down your negative 11. Next, let's move the positive 14 out and to the other side. We'll take its additive inverse, a negative 14, and add it to both sides. This leaves us with a y plus 0 equals a 0 minus 25. In this case, our y is equal to negative 25. In question number 3, we want to solve for a. By looking at this problem, we see that we have the constant 3 being multiplied to the variable a. So to remove the 3, we will divide both sides of the equation by the coefficient, the constant 3. This causes the 3 to cancel out on the left side of the problem, leaving just a equals a negative 18 divided by positive 3. We're not quite done. We want to simplify this problem, so we'll divide that 3 into the negative 18 to get a negative 6. In question number 4, here again, we're going to solve for the variable a. In this case, we have 1/9 multiplying to a equals 0. To clear the coefficient 1/9, we will be multiplying both sides by the multiplicative inverse, 9. Let's first recopy the question below to give a little bit of room to work. So we're going to multiply both sides by the multiplicative inverse, which would be, in this case, a 9. This in turn clears the fraction from the left side of the page, leaving a equals 0 times 9 over 1. Anything times 0 equals 0. So a is equal to 0. In question 5, we'll be solving for n. We'll begin solving this one by moving the negative 6 away from the 7n. We can do this by adding both sides the additive inverse of the negative 6, being a positive 6. So add plus 6 to both sides. This leaves 7n plus 0 equals 35. Next, we'll move the 7 away from the n. When we look at the 7 and the n, 7 is multiplying to n. The opposite would be to divide, so we will divide both sides by 7. N then ends up being equal to a positive 5. Last problem in this section is number 6. We will be solving for x in problem number 6. Let's start by simplifying both sides of the equation. We can do this again by distributing our positive 7 through our parentheses. A 7 distributed through to a negative 3 creates a negative 21x. Then distribute the 7 to the negative 6 in the parentheses to create a negative 42. Carry down in front the plus and the negative 9x. On the right side of the problem, we see a negative 63 minus 9x. It's already simplified. Just carry it down as is. Next, combine like terms. We have a negative 9x and a negative 21x that are alike. Let's combine these two to create a negative 30x. Carry down the minus 42 and again carry down the right side. Next, let's move on by moving our 9x or negative 9x to the left side. We use its additive inverse, which is a plus 9x. We add this to both sides of the equation. This in turn gives us a negative 21x minus 42 equals negative 63 plus 0. Next, let's sum the additive inverse of negative 42 to both sides. This would be a positive 42 plus 42 on both sides. We're left with negative 21x plus 0 equals negative 21. Finally, we see a negative 21 being multiplied to an x. We will divide both sides by negative 21. This leaves x equal to 1. This completes this section of the review.